Bueno, buenos días. Vamos a comenzar este evento, esta sesión, que es para nosotros un honor tener aquí en la escuela hoy, y así pretendemos participar también de la celebración del Día del Diseño Italiano, que es para nosotros un gran honor. Entonces, yo antes de presentar a nuestro ponente de hoy, quería recordar y agradecer la presencia de María Luisa Papalardo, que es la directora del Instituto Italiano de Cultura. Sí, ponla por ahí. Es la directora del Instituto Italiano de Cultura, y Alessandra Picone, que es la asistente de dirección. Y esto seguramente los alumnos que están aquí no lo saben, pero para nosotros el Instituto Italiano de Cultura es como el hada madrina, casi. Realmente, gracias al Instituto Italiano de Cultura empezó el grado en diseño en esta escuela, porque hace ya 7 años el Instituto Italiano de Cultura nos propuso traer como invitados al grupo Forma Fantasma, y que venían acompañados por Domitila Dardi, que es curator del Maxi para temas de diseño y que luego ha sido profesora en nuestro grado muchas veces, y aquel fue casi milagrosamente el primer encuentro que tuvimos con el mundo del diseño. Justo eso coincidía en el tiempo con la decisión de montar un grado en diseño, y realmente para nosotros aquello fue como el comienzo de todo lo que ha pasado estos años y en lo que ahora pues todos estamos involucrados. Por lo tanto, muchísimas gracias, y es una alegría que sigáis colaborando con nosotros y dándonos la oportunidad de vivir con intensidad la vida del diseño. Bueno, presento a nuestro invitado. Nuestro ponente de hoy es Andrea de Chirico, bien, que es un apellido que tiene muchas resonancias culturales en el siglo XX, ¿no? Pero bueno, Andrea es diseñador, obtuvo su maestría en diseño en la Design Academy de Eindhoven, que además es para nosotros pues también una referencia indudable y que hemos procurado seguir con interés, y ha estudiado también diseño industrial en Roma. Su trabajo, ahora lo veremos, diseña herramientas, sistemas y objetos con conciencia social y ambiental, y siempre ligados a un análisis riguroso del contexto. Bien, veremos ahora con interés cómo ocurre esto. Pues ha sido investigador en la Universidad Libre de Bolzano, que también es otro lugar que seguimos con interés y en el que participan diversos profesores de la escuela, y ha sido diseñador en residencia para el Design Museum de Londres, ¿no? Y su trabajo se ha exhibido pues, en ferias y museos internacionales, en el Design Museum de Londres, en la Trienal Design Museum, en la C33 House for Contemporary Art, entre otros, y ha pronunciado conferencias y charlas en varias instituciones y universidades, y es para nosotros un honor tenerlo hoy aquí. Bueno, María Luisa.
Muchas gracias, Carlos, y gracias a vosotros por estar aquí con nosotros. Hoy, como ha dicho el director, es el día, el Italian Design Day, el Día del Diseño Italiano, que celebramos en todo el mundo en colaboración con las embajadas y los institutos italianos de cultura en el mundo, así que también vosotros sois parte, digamos, de este día que está dedicado al diseño en general. Me gusta también subrayar el tema de este año, que es un tema claramente de gran actualidad, que es el tema de la sostenibilidad, el tema de los materiales, del reuso. Entonces hemos decidido invitar a Andrea para que nos hablara de su experiencia como estímulo también para vosotros, que sois todavía estudiantes, cómo enfrentarse los retos que son los retos de la actualidad. No quiero añadir más, solo me gustaría agradecer una vez más, en particular a Carlos Nay, el director de la escuela, a Carlos Giocarro, Cristina, por esta colaboración que tenemos, que para nosotros es realmente muy importante. Es un placer, un honor poder estar aquí en esta escuela que, como siempre digo, estáis vosotros los jóvenes que sois estímulos de creatividad, especialmente de futuro. Esto es para nosotros muy importante. Y os recuerdo que las puertas del instituto, nosotros estamos en Madrid, pero están siempre abiertas como también puente para descubrir un poco más de Italia y también como puente para un diálogo que queremos fomentar entre nosotros, entre Italia y España. Así que espero que disfrutéis de este taller, de esta conferencia, de este seminario. Hacéis muchas preguntas, porque Andrea está aquí también para esto, no, responder las demandas. Y gracias otra vez y buen día. Gracias.
So, buenos días. It works. Yeah, but here I cannot, doesn't move anything. I don't know what's, sorry for the. No. What should I even?
Can you exit the PowerPoint?
It does not, it seems blocked.
Oh.
Maybe I control, okay. Oh, okay.
With this.
I tried before, but okay. Okay, nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really pleased today to be here to speak about this project that I started in 2015 as a thesis project in the university in the Netherlands, which is called Superlocal, 0 miles production. And basically, it's a global network to question and to explore the possibility of producing daily life objects locally. Everything started with a question that I'm sure many of you ask themselves. So what would be the, what does design mean? And what's the role of the designer nowadays into our society? And my own personal answer to this question would be that the designer is a kind of explorer. So even though automation and virtual realities are rising, we explore the world. We want to reclaim the relationship with the material world, the craftsmanship and the context. We are always seeking for beauty. This is more like a tendency than a destination. It connects soul and body, aesthetic and intimate, moral and material worlds. So in other words, this is our catalyst for change. So what we do is that we go by bike here in Eindhoven in the Netherlands to laser cut plywood. And then we cast the bronze into sand in a local foundry. Then we also use the car to move around, to then 3D print some parts in the local fab lab in PLA. And then we meet with Keith, who is a glass maker in Eindhoven. This is Sam, is from Iran, but it's an upholsterer that is based in Eindhoven as well. And then we cut marble in a gravestone maker shop. Then, of course, we also use silk screen to communicate our activities. And then, of course, we also use public transportation. So the result of all this exploration, it's in other words, what I'm doing here, it's a methodology for local activation. So the project speaks more about a methodology than about something that is, I hear myself with the, but anyways, okay, so it's a methodology, and this methodology is described in 4 steps. So the first step is mapping. So once I move within a specific context, I start mapping all the material flows, the craftsmen, and the workshops that are present in a specific place. By place, I mean mostly an area of a neighborhood. So we speak about areas that are basically manageable with a short bike ride, so around 2.5 kilometers, more or less. And then in the mapping, we speak about all kind of organization that can play a role within a production of certain objects. So, of course, craftsmanship materials, but also cooperatives that are dealing with craftsmanship, associations that are sponsoring the craft scene of a specific place. Then after the mapping, we move to the second phase, which is the production. So basically, we activate a few of these elements that we mapped within the first phase in order to produce a daily object. So we always speak about objects that are usable. I'm gonna show you soon what I mean by daily objects. And then the third phase, it's also very important. So it's the phase where the people and the public step into the production itself. So basically we organize some production tours. So the public in groups of around 10 people move around the same path that I made in order to produce the objects. And then they make the object themselves. So in the end of the day, or this half a day, depending on the context, people is able to make some sort of objects, as we are gonna see soon. Then the fourth step that is also a bit transversal to the other three is the documentation, which is really important in order to communicate the production. So, so far from 2015, we made a few workshops and productions around, also in San Sebastian in 2018, I think. So we organized a few activities in Europe. Today, I'm going to show you just a few case studies. So I'm not going to tell you about all the steps. So the first one I would like to start with is the actually first part of the project that happened, as I showed you just before, in Eindhoven, in the Netherlands. And the explorations that were part of the video that I just showed you resulted into this set of objects that is composed by 4 daily life objects. So you have a mirror, an hair dryer, a table, and a stool. So what I like to do is always to work in more than concentrating on one specific object, on a set of objects, so that I can touch most of the techniques and the materials that are possible to be used in a specific place. So this gives me the possibility to move around different techniques and materials, but they have some kind of coherency between the 4 objects. So this is, for example, is a set for self-care or for beauty, if you want to say like this. So these 4 objects, if we take the map of Eindhoven, would be visualized within this 4 paths. So basically, the red one is the hair dryer. The blue one is the table, the yellow is the mirror, while the green one is the stool. So in 2016, we organized some production tours. 3 groups of people were moving in 3 different districts at the same time in Eindhoven. Here is a group that was basically dedicated to the making of a mirror that has a bronze base. So bronze is casted into red sand. You know, for example, bronze casting is a technique that is very ancient. So even from the prehistoric times, but it's still very relevant, as bronze has a potentially an infinite life because it can be recasted all over and over. Then there is the lunch, that of course is a moment that is super important for community building and so on. I know in Spain you understand. And then you have also people that can visit second-hand shops and they're encouraged to see potential also in second-hand objects. This is another group that was dedicated to the making of some lanterns with reclaimed jars and 3D printed lids, so that a jar could be turned into a lamp. Then at 6, because we are in the Netherlands and dinner is quite early, we would gather all the 3 groups together and have dinner all together with all the objects we made during the day. Then I'm going to show you a second case study that happened in North Kensington in London. So in the west part of London. This was a residency for the Design Museum that, as you might know, is based in the west side of London. And therefore, the production was based in that area, even though if some of you are familiar with London, you will know that the east side is the part that is more seen as more vibrant or active in a cultural sector. Though I wanted to base the production close to the museum because an idea of this project is that wherever you are, you can manage to make something. So wherever you are, you can find some interesting materials and techniques to be able to make something. So what we decided to make during this residency are these two air dryers at the top that are out of ceramics. The one that is this one was the first one I just showed you in Eindhoven. Well, this one was made in Rome, where I'm actually from, in San Lorenzo. That is a district close to the main university campus of the city. It's one of the biggest in Europe as a university campus. And for example, as we say always that the forms follows the context. To give you an example, this dryer here was made by a craftsman that is active in San Lorenzo that usually makes the scientific tools for the physics and the chemistry labs of the university. And therefore, this hair dryer has this shape. As in the mapping, I always go around and ask the craftsman what they make the most and what they like to make, so that when I design the object, also the shape somehow comes from the knowledge that's already in place. So it's a kind of reverse kind of system where you start by seeing what's possible, and then you design based on things that you know already that are possible, while we are also used sometimes to have an idea and then understand how to realize it and make it real. This is a bit a kind of reversed situation. So the two top here are out of ceramics. Just to give you just a perspective on this, the ceramic, the two parts, it takes two months more or less to make, because ceramics, as you know, it has the time to you need to have the time to dry, then you have to fire it 3 times. So it's a kind of manufacturing technique that needs a lot of time, while the glass is much more immediate. So to make these two parts of glass, it takes around 40 minutes because it comes with a tube that is placed on a lathe, so that turns, and so the kind of work here is less demanding than the ceramic one, which is actually made by hand on a spinning wheel, on a turning wheel. The inspiration for these two air dryers, it could be interesting to say, is that I was thinking about the tea set of the royal family in England. So, so the production is something that follows, of course, the potential of a specific context in terms of materials and craftsmanship, but also the kind of objects that are produced somehow have the memory, of course, filtrated by my own sensitivity about the context itself. So I was very much fascinated by Wedgwood, that is a great manufacturer, English manufacturer of the end of the 18th century that was making the tea set of the royal family in England that are still in use. So this, for example, was very much inspired by that set. So it's also painted in gold and it's porcelain. And the challenge here for ceramics is that there is the shrinking rate. So ceramics, when you fire it, shrinks a lot. So imagine that, for example, porcelain here shrinks by 17%. So if you need a specific diameter to make the mechanism fit inside, you need to calculate really much the shrinking rate of the material. So it's quite challenging. Speaking about London, then here is the west part of London. This path is 1.2 miles because we're in England, so it's quite short. And the red one is for the stool that I'm going to show you now, and the blue one is for the air dryer. So this is a stool that we designed together with OpenDesk. OpenDesk is a project that is based in London. It's a very interesting project that I also I think it's also interesting to see. So they basically offer a new decentralized manufacturing situation where all the furniture, they mainly focus on workspaces. So they always use plywood as a material and the CNC as a technique to manufacture the plywood. So if you go to their website, you can download the file and then you go to your local maker or CNC shop, and then you make your furniture. So their production is really much standardized, so it needs to be always the same wherever you want to make it. And here we did a little change in their model. So we based their design in the west part of London. So for example, the fabric here comes from a linen shop that is in Portobello Street, that is very known street where there is the market, and the plywood comes from some building sites of the area. So it's a reclaimed wood, and we organized this production tour in London, where we would go around the west part of London, visiting some workshops, some interesting places like this one. That is it's a print shop in London where you can go and print in an analog or digital way. Then we moved to the Goldfinger Factory. That is an association that gets wood, second-hand wood, and then they turn it into new furniture. This is the clothes shop, that's the place I was telling you about, where they sell linen in 54 different colors. So the public can also customize the objects. They have to pick one out of these 54 colors. Then we moved to the Future Factory. That is this one where basically we could CNC mill the parts of the stool. And then we moved to the Kindred Studios. That is a former school that was turned into a place for artists to work. So there are many artist studios. So while making this tool, then the people get in contact with many places, with techniques, with people. So the object becomes a sort of a portal or an excuse to get in contact to many kinds of knowledge. So here we have the upholstery shop that was run by Sarah, who is an upholsterer from the area. And it was nice because in London, they have this idea of the West as something a bit residential, not very vibrant. And the people coming from the East were changing a bit their minds about this part of London that actually can offer also many interesting places. So every participant then was able to make one stool. Of course, in London, for example, compared to Eindhoven, you know, London is much more hectic as a place, so everything goes very fast. And therefore, we had to make the tour last for a few hours, so 4 hours, more or less. So also, like the production itself, also the design of the events follows a bit the context and how the context a bit works. So what we do is we enter into a place, and then we map the networks that are already in place, and we connect them into the production of an object. In a way, it's a formalization of this relationship that we built. Then I'm going to show you this case study in Bolzano, Bozen, that is a city, it's a town actually in the northeast side of Italy by the Austrian border. So it's by the Alps, by the mountains. And what we made is another set of objects. So these 4 objects. So we have a chair, a coffee table, a Bluetooth speaker, and a carpet. So here you might recognize the South Tyrolean chair, that is the typical chair from the Alpine context. And then we have the stone, that is a material that's very much connected to the mountains, of course. And the felt, that is the material we use for the carpet, that comes from the wool. So it's also related to the mountains. So if we visualize these 4 objects within the town of Bolzano, we see that they follow a little bit also the urbanism of the town itself. As for example, Eindhoven is really much centralized, also formally the town itself. We see that production was very much following that kind of dynamics. While here, as in Bolzano, there is the Adige, that is the main river that is crossing the town. Also, the production was following this kind of dynamic, or this kind of development of the town itself. Then we organized this production tour about the making of the South Tyrolean chair that traditionally was made during the, oh, this is a bit glitching, was made during the winter time by the shepherds on the mountain, so they had plenty of time to use, and therefore these chairs were very much decorated, and each of them was different from the other, was the very unique kind of pieces of furniture. And therefore we developed a set of variation of this chair, so it's not as unique as it used to be, but we were, as in this case, they are made with the CNC machine, so there is a kind of standardization of this chair. So we are trying to find a kind of meeting point between a mass-produced object and a very unique handmade one. So it's a kind of hybridation of these two scenarios. Then we see also the lunch, of course. And then we move to Akrat. That is a place a little bit like in London, Goldfinger Factory, a place that deals with the reclaimed wood and textile. So they have a textile shop and a wood shop. And they also have some refugees that work in the wood shop. So they also teach them how to work with wood, and so they help them to be integrated into the society. And here with the whole group, we were able to assemble the chairs that were pre-cut with the CNC. And then each participant could customize the chair with some colors, some basic colors. I think there were 4 or 5 colors. So also here, a bit like in the stool in London, there was a kind of customization. This customization is always kind of organized beforehand for safety reasons first, and also for timing, as the event needs to follow some kind of organization. So we see this was a 3-layer pine wood, the CNC, and then here you see the painting session. They are made to be also to come in flat, a bit like IKEA furniture. You know, they're always flat to occupy less space. So here a bit the same idea. And so you see here the variation of this chair in 8 different variations, and then each participant was customizing the chairs in a different way. Then I'm going to show you this phase of the project that happened in 2019, right before the pandemics, in Arles. That is a town in the south of France, in Provence. So in the south of France, this town is very much known for Van Gogh, because he was painting most of his paintings in this place, especially because he was fascinated by the light also coming from the Netherlands of the south of France. So here I was designing this fan that is called the Mistral. Mistral is the name also of the wind, as you know, that is really much related to the place of Arles, because the wind blows on the axis north-south. So also the architecture traditionally is meant to follow the wind itself, that is considered like a person. So it's really much present in the context of Arles. And in a way, the fun was something that, because this is also part of the project, so it's meant to be a kind of growing family where all the newcomers are kind of keeping a memory of the object that come before them. So in this case, you have some elements that come from the hairdryer, and also the technology itself of a fan is very much similar to an hairdryer. So we can see this production was happening mainly around Arles, in the production areas around the cities that, you know, they are often quite surrounding the cities, and also in the villages around Arles itself. So here you see the list of all the places that were part of the production. And then here you have an exploded view of the object with the parts that come from each place. So for example, just to give you an interesting insight, so every part follows a kind of logic. So for example, the base, the number two comes from Rodage Sud. That is a factory that is making the iron structures for architecture. So where then the concrete is poured on, you know, this iron structure, and then the skeleton of the buildings, in other words. And they have these metal rods of 12 meters, and they always have 1 meter that is left out of their production. They usually send it back to Brescia, that is the place where you have most of the, you have a big center for metal production. But in this case, we use this left meter of this metal rod to make the base, for example. While another interesting thing to mention is that the number 3, so the handle and the 2 knots, the 2 sides, are made with a filament that was actually developed by Atelier Luma. That is a foundation that is based in Arles. That is a PLA filament for 3D printing that is made out of algae. Algae is it's a plant, it's an organism that is very much present in the area in Camargue, because there is the delta of the Rhone, you know, this very huge river that is the second biggest delta in the Mediterranean Sea after the Nile. So you have this kind of landscape, also because for ecological terms, is very important and very delicate. And the algae, like in this case, but also in other places around the world, it's a material that is very much used for making bioplastics and interesting materials. And in this case, I wanted to include also this research into the making of this object. Then in this phase, I was also able to make, together with a student from the University of Photography, that is also in Arles, the main photography school in France, a book that should work. A book to document the process of these objects. So a bit like in the object, I always use digital techniques together with traditional ones, and I kind of hybridate the old and the new, let's say. Here we were using analog photography and digital photography. So the book itself was following, and also the book is an object, no? So it's a kind of following the same logic of the project itself. Then it was binded by hand, and there were each little leaflet was about a specific craftsman. So it's first time that we managed to have this kind of documentation. Okay. Then now that we are in 2022, we are stepping into a new phase of this project that is called the version 2. That was recently presented in Berlin during a festival that is called Driving the Human. So the version 2 of this object, this project, sorry, includes the making of the first production hub, the offline production hub of Superlocal. So the idea is that after having a few years of testing this model and moving around like a nomad, in this moment we are trying to be a little bit more stable on having a more like medium or long-term vision, so that we have these hubs that are physically present into urban context, because you know the urban context is the main context for humans and will always be, that's the kind of tendency. So we're gonna live more and more into urban context. So therefore this project speaks about urban context mainly. So the idea is to have these hubs in different places that act on a local base. So here you see the black would be the hubs, and then you have some elements around them. And basically the physical elements are managed locally, and then the knowledge, so the unphysical things, so the knowledge about what to produce, how, and so on, is traveling around the internet, so not on a physical point of view. Then, of course, as you understand, like in every place, you have some things that are possible and other things that are not. Just to give you the reference of these 4 elements, that this is a diagram that was made in 2015. So this version 2 is somehow part of the project from the beginning. Of course, I have to say honestly that the pandemics also informed a little bit this step, no, because all of us had a much more kind of not moving too much for a few time. So we have these 4 elements that are on the supplier's point of view and the manufacturer's point of view. So you have suppliers that are basically providing recycled materials and raw materials as well. So a combination of the two. We always have reclaimed parts in our objects. For example, in the head dryers would be the mechanism inside, so it's second-hand. And then you have raw materials that are more new. So it's a combination of the two that gives the object. While on the manufacturing point of view, as I was telling you before, it's a combination between digital manufacturing techniques and traditional ones. So it's we always try also here to be placed in the middle. So I always say that we are in the middle between craft nostalgia, so this feeling of having this old man in his workshop not able to pass his knowledge to the new generations, and this digital proudness that is really much sponsored, or very much part of also the Maker movement, the Fab Lab network that probably you are familiar with. So also here we try to find a middle point or a balance between these two spheres to be kind of in the middle between these two. And then in district house or the production hub will basically organize some workshop activities, produce the objects, and then of course also repair the object eventually in the future. So this is, you don't see it. Okay, this is the center of Turin, where I'm actually based at the moment. So it's called the Quadrilateral. It comes from a Roman, how to say, like an army, a settlement for the army. So he has this very much squared kind of structure that is still in place. And therefore, yeah, so this is one part. This is the center of Turin. Then, of course, Turin is also bigger than this. But then you have Charles Fourier, that maybe you know. It's an economist that was active between the 18th and the 19th century. That was developing a sort of utopian society that was actually realized in the States in a few locations. So he was imagining this kind of units of self-sufficient units of groups, I think around 2,000 people, that would be able to live within this building, having all the services and all the things they might need during their daily life. So also informed by this study and also by other studies about utopian that I find quite fascinating, I developed this kind of place that is the production hub. So this very much squared space that follows a sort of cyclical logic. So basically you have the number one here is where the material enters. So this is the technical entrance, while this one is the main one. So here is more like a storage space. So for materials to be stored and so on. Then you have this part, this side here that is more dedicated to assembly. So basically you commission the parts to the craftsmen that are in the area. Then you gather all the parts and then you assemble them here. So this is a workshop devoted more for the assembly and finishing of the pieces. So here is the painting room, of course, that you need to paint the objects. And this third side here is more about retailing. So to sell the objects, to display them, and also to organize activities and workshops in this place, as well as the courtyard here. That is the center of the place. So in Berlin, I was asked to basically to show this development, and I decided to realize a scale model. So the scale model was made with the model maker Stefano Carrari that is based in Turin, and we developed this model. Is 1:25, so it's a model in architecture. Is not really much used because it's quite close. So you can experience the furniture that's inside. So we actually were making some the object themselves inside the space. So you can, for example, you see there is the cargo bike to collect materials around and bring them to the hub. That we know also the price of the gas now, so it's better to use the bike, for example. No? So then you have the storage space here with also soldering station. It was having so much fun also making it very much. I find this very very nice. Then you have the workshop here. So you have you can see also the tools and the things. This is a silk screen station. So this is a machine that is used to print in a silk screen. Maybe you experience this very nice technique. It's very nice, this technique, because it's very much versatile. So you can print on virtually any material you want. So we're going to use this technique to communicate the activities of the hub itself. And that's why in Berlin, we are presenting a model of this space together with a workshop about silk screen. So the visitors could first were experiencing the model itself, and then as if they would enter the model itself, they would be able to make this silk screen shop. So they were printing their bags, the shopping bags, and then they were bringing back to their homes these bags that they printed. And of course, this is a very important element of the hub, that is the map that is constantly updated about the craftsmen, the materials that are in Turin in this case, but in each context that we're going to work with. And then you have the courtyard. And I'm going to show you, if we go down to the actual map, I was, as I always do, I was telling you at the beginning, the mapping phase. So you have first mapping of the context of Turin. That Turin is a city that is very much devoted to manufacturing. Traditionally, the Fiat, but not just the Fiat, also publishing. You have you have some of the main publishing houses in Italy. So they are very much devoted to printing. And also movies and lens and cameras and glasses. So they have very much, it's a city that is also very much related to cinema, for example. So you have all these kind of main production lines that are still there. So there is the knowledge for this kind of manufacturing techniques. And the plan here is to redraw a kind of dynamics between these producers to design some furniture. So for example, some people that before were making car profiles in metal could make something different with the same technique. So that's a bit the idea. So the map here, you can see they're divided also with some categories. You have also materials here and associations that are dealing with craftsmanship. So we deal with production the most open way possible. So everything that can be part of this context, we basically map it out. So we have also the, for example, the Association for Craftsmen, the Chamber of Commerce, and all these kind of cooperatives that are dedicated also to support the production scene of these places. As I'm sure also in Spain there are many. And so yeah, that's what I was basically saying. So what we're gonna do now is to prototype some production lines in Turin, and also some activities that go together with the production lines, and start building up the hub. So I can tell you just now, it's a kind of breaking news that I just got a place. So we're gonna starting from beginning of April, we're gonna actually make this hub that don't look exactly like the model, but there's some elements that are the same, because I was taking some architectural elements that I was seeing around Turin, and I was including them into the building. And that's why the workshop I got has, for example, the same shape of the windows, or has some elements that were also in the model. So the project, to go into the final goal of this project would be to, and that's also why when I speak about this project, I always speak in like in plural terms, because I see this project as a really much a collective effort. So it's a kind of methodology, and many colleagues and organizations that share this kind of vision on production. So the idea would be to turn this project, and it's already happening a little bit, as I know in many universities in Europe. This project is kind of is shown as a kind of reference, to turn this project into a kind of movement of people that have this kind of attitude towards production and the context they live in and they act as designers or producers. Super thanks. If you have some questions, I'll be.
Has anyone got any question?
First, I just want to say thank you very much. I really appreciated your presentation. But I was wondering, how do you go about making these connections with the local artists? Do they come to you? Do you come to them? And like, how do you kind of start networking? Because I know that's a big part of your work, and just in general, networking is very important. So what are kind of tips to do that?
Okay, thank you for this question. I developed along the years a kind of methodology that starts by mapping that works online and offline. No? So that's all of you, I'm sure, do. So you have a Google Map research and an offline one, and the two basically cooperate. So for example, I see something online and then I visit them in person, and that's it's informing also my my research. There are also some workshops, sometimes they're also the most interesting ones that I don't have even a website, so you need to go there physically. After the first mapping phase, I find one element that I define the genius loci, I call it like this, that is an organization or a person that stays in that context from some time and has a big knowledge about this context. And so I relocate the mapping based on the genius loci. So I do the first mapping to define the center of this mapping. And then once I find this genius loci, I redefine the mapping itself. it was funny also because during the pandemics, as we were all in lockdown, we did also a mapping just online, just online in Paris for a project for the ENSAD, that is the University of Design there. So it was interesting to experiment a new way, that would work just online. But I think that it has to be on both levels, because if you do either just online or just offline, then somehow you miss some rounded research. So yeah, that's and I always have this tendency to dedicate around half of the time of my practice to build up connections with organizations, so with people, with artists, with craftsmen, and it's really nice because throughout the years I built some relationship that are still in place. So wherever there are people that ask me, okay, I'm going to London, I need to make this, what should I, and then I can provide all kind of that you can also see yourself in the website. So I have also people that told me, I saw through your website this cooperative that make felt in Südtirol, and we started working. So I really see this project as a kind of portal towards some kind of knowledge that comes from places, neighborhoods.
Hi, it's very interesting this vision that you have and how you can give identity to your work, but inspiring of the local things. And in my experience, I'm from Chile, and in Chile, almost all the things that we can produce are very expensive, and we try to import all the things from Europe or China. And it's interesting, this vision of you trying to contact or connect and give more value to the manufacturers, to the producers, and try to give a new perspective of design and how you can design from your local and not try to import things from other countries. A question: the government in the place that you visit try to give support to this program, or is more like you you try to comfort the world?
It really depends on the place. So basically, this project started in the Netherlands, for example, and I think it's not the case, because for the Netherlands, as you might know, it's a country that is it's a very small country already, that is very much dedicated to experimentation in architecture and design, for example, and also politically they have like big fundings to support this kind of initiatives, and they're really much enthusiastic when you have some kind of new or kind of new approach to things. So they really like things that yeah. So I was able to make this production tour in Eindhoven because someone trusted me, and he was brave enough to trust into this project, so I was able to develop it there. In London, it's a context, for example, the Design Museum, you know, the museums in England, they have this kind of structure that is half private, half public. And they have this funding is from the Craft Council, that is a private institution that is funding all the craft-related activities in London and in England. And they're really active. They organize many activities and so on. In France, it was really much there also. They're really I was able to present my work in the Chamber of Commerce, for example, in south of France. So there was a lot of interest. Yeah, actually, I got much more interest outside Italy than in Italy, to be honest. And so this project I was able to develop because I was abroad. But I always thought about this project to be implemented in Italy, because Italy is a place where wherever you go, every time you go, you have a specific manufacturing technique, a specific material that is also there from centuries, and people have a great knowledge about techniques and so on. So I really, how to say, I was really stubborn in wanting to start this project, to implement this project in Italy. I hope I will manage. Of course, in Italy, if we speak about design, Milan is the one that is leading a bit the design scene. So we see, for example, the town hall of Milan that now is supporting these kind of initiatives. So yeah, and also on a European level, you know, also I saw outside here the new Bauhaus poster and so on. So it's something that somehow has some political attention from some years. So, and yeah, and also the local, I wanted to, because you were saying, for example, about Chile, super interesting, because I always say that, for example, I don't do this project because I think all the objects should be produced this way. Because if we speak, for example, about just an object we all have, no? The smartphone, has so many different metals, even precious ones, that you couldn't make a smartphone locally, for example. No? And in Chile, there is the main, for example, main quantity of lithium on the planet. And the lithium is the main material for electric batteries. So all the electric cars, all the things also for the green transition and so on, they need the lithium from Chile, for example. So they couldn't be, for a Tesla, you cannot make it locally. But my point is that there are some objects that you could make this way. So it's a combination between mass-produced, decentralized production and more local production. Then you have a different kind of situation, because, yeah. So it's a kind of combination between the two. So I always try I always say also to the students when the university where I work to avoid the binary thinking. So there is not like a material that is good, because now we tend, for example, to think that plastic is bad, no? But plastic is a whole universe of possibilities. That are bioplastic, they are not bioplastic, biodegradable. So you need to, and then for some situations, maybe plastic is the material that fits the best, no? So I always look for variety. I think sustainable, also the topic of the Italian Design Day, is really much, it is a word that everyone is a bit wondering what it means. Actually, I'm also interrogating myself all the time about this word. To me, it's really much related to the notion of variety, of diversity. So having a kind of combination of things that cooperate for a common purpose. No? So there is not one solution. There will be many solutions that are basically acting all of them to reach a sort of common goal. So it's not about having the perfect solution, I think, or the best material. Or... Yeah, so maybe I spoke too much, but I hope I answered.
Any more questions? I want them to ask, not me.
Hi, I was wondering if Superlocal did any kind of internship programs or like over the summer for students, because by the way you presented it, it seems like something that really brings, you know, people together and so on. I think that's cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I got some people that are asking me to do internships, and of course, I think also having a space, it's a way to be able, because before I was basically all around Europe, so now I will be able to have a space also to guest also internships and so on, as I have people asking me, and so yes, the answer is So this is a short answer.
Okay, thanks.
So if anyone else hasn't got any more questions, just
Also this year, okay.